Most women are waiting for a man to say the words, "I like you." But they are completely missing the physical interrogation happening right in front of them. In the world of high-status attraction, touch is never an accident, it is a consent calibration. Today, I'm revealing the 5 specific places a man will touch you when he's deeply attracted to you, and the psychological reason why each move is a test of your sovereign presence. If you want to know exactly where you stand without him saying a single word, pay very close attention to this first location. We often spend so much time analyzing what a man says that we completely ignore what his hands are telling us. But words can be rehearsed, physiology doesn't lie. When a man is truly, deeply attracted to you, not just as a temporary consumer, but as a woman of standard, his touch changes. It moves from being accidental to being intentional. Today, we are breaking down the 5 specific places a man will touch you when he is caught in your magnetic field. Location A wins E, the small of the back. This is the executive touch. When a man places his hand here to guide you through a room, he is stepping into his masculine role as a protector. He is signaling to the world, and to you, that he is invested in your safety. It's a high-status move that shows he's ready to lead the moving train of your evening together. Location A2A, the forearm or elbow. This is the calibration point. It's a low-risk, high-reward touch. He's testing your non-reactive anchor. He's checking to see if you're comfortable in your own skin. If he lingers here while making a point, he's trying to build a pier of character, connection. Location on 3, the lower back or waist. This is a deeper level of the desperation deficit. By moving his hand lower, he is breaking the friend zone barrier. He is seeing if you will allow him into your safe harbor. If he does this while leaning in to whisper, he is officially melting mentally. Location wine 4A, the side of the face or hair. This is the discovery phase. This touch is about vulnerability. It's quiet, it's slow, and it's deeply intimate. When a man reaches for a stray hair, he isn't fixing your look. He is finding an excuse to touch the architecture of your beauty. Location point 5A. The hand, the full connection. Most people think hand holding is basic. It's not. It's a sovereign choice. When he reaches for your hand in a crowded space, he is saying, "I want the world to see that I have qualified for her time." The secret isn't just knowing where he touches you. It's knowing that you are the prize who decides if he's earned the right to stay there. Because when you hold your value, every touch becomes a tribute to the woman you are. In the high-stakes world of relationship psychology, the most profound conversations often happen without a single word being spoken. While most people focus on what to say, the sovereign woman understands that attraction is primarily a game of space and energy. The proximity pivot is the strategic use of physical distance to test a man's level of investment and to demonstrate your own unshakable self-possession. It is the art of moving within a man's personal sphere, not as a seeker of validation, but as a moving train that he is invited to board. The science of the qualifying gap. Every human being has a proxemic bubble, an invisible boundary that defines our comfort zone. When a man is attracted to you, he will instinctively try to close the qualifying gap. He will lean in closer during a conversation or find reasons to stand just a few inches nearer than social norms dictate. The proximity pivot occurs when you consciously manage this gap. Most women, when they feel a man leaning in, instinctively lean forward to meet him, or they fidget in a way that betrays their anxiety. This is a mistake. By leaning in too early, you close the vacuum of uncertainty and signal that you are already captured. To maintain your status as a lifetime discovery, you must remain at non-reactive anchor. You stay perfectly still, allowing him to do the work of closing the distance. Image a cinematic side profile shot of a man leaning in to speak to a woman at a crowded event. The woman is standing perfectly upright, her chin slightly tilted, looking at him with a calm, neutral smile. She is not leaning back in fear, nor is she leaning forward to please him. She is the fixed point in the room, he implementing the pivot, the stay and sway. To execute the proximity pivot effectively, you must master sovereign presence. When he moves into your space, Don't break eye contact, and don't adjust your posture to accommodate him. Stay in your safe harbor. The pivot happens when you briefly enter his space to make a point, perhaps a light touch on the arm, or leaning in to whisper a forbidden phrase, and then immediately pivot back to your original position. This creates a powerful respect-dopamine loop. You have given him a micro dose of your intimacy and then reclaimed your autonomy. This tells his subconscious, I am comfortable with you, but I do not belong to you. The melting point, the power of presence. A man melts mentally during a proximity pivot because it triggers his hunt instinct. When you don't recoil from his closeness, but you also don't perform for it, you become a peer of character. You are showing him that you have high emotional mobility. You can be intimate one moment and perfectly independent the next. Image a woman gracefully turning away from a conversation to pick up her drink, her movement fluid and unhurried. The man is left standing in the space she just occupied, his eyes following her with intense interest and a newfound sense of pursuit. By mastering the proximity pivot, you ensure that the physical progression of the relationship is always a sovereign choice. You move from being a consumer of his attention to the architect of the tension itself. You aren't waiting for him to move. You are setting the stage for him to realize that every inch he gains in your world is a privilege he has to earn. The consent calibration, the high status language of physical respect in the intricate dance of attraction, the leap from a handshake to a more intimate touch can feel like a chasm. Most people handle this transition with clumsy uncertainty or worse, aggressive overstepping. However, the high-status individual uses a sophisticated psychological tool called consent calibration. This is the practice of using micro-touches to gauge a partner's emotional mobility and comfort levels in real time. It is a silent dialogue where he asks a question with his hand, and you provide the answer with your sovereign presence. The silent dialogue of micro-touches. Attraction is not a binary switch. It is a series of qualifying hurdles. A man who operates from a place of standard over sentiment does not simply grab for what he wants. Instead, he uses consent calibration to test the waters of your safe harbor. This might look like a hand briefly touching the small of your back to guide you through a doorway, or a thumb grazing your knuckles as he hands you a drink. Image a close-up, high-definition shot of a man's hand lightly resting on a woman's forearm during a conversation. The touch is deliberate but gentle. The woman's skin is not tensing. She remains relaxed and grounded, her focus still on the conversation, showing she has calibrated. The touch is acceptable. In each of these moments is a calibration point. He is watching for your non-reactive anchor. If you stiffen, pull away, or break eye contact with a look of discomfort, he has received a no, and if he is high value, he will immediately pivot back. But if you remain relaxed, or better yet, lean into the touch, you have signaled that he has successfully qualified for the next level of intimacy. The respect-dopamine loop in calibration. The reason consent calibration is so intoxicating is that it builds massive amounts of tension without the performance pressure of a grand romantic gesture. When a man calibrates correctly, he is using the vacuum of uncertainty to his advantage. By touching you briefly and then withdrawing, he makes your brain crave the contact again. As a woman of opinion sovereignty, your role in this calibration is to be honest with your physiology. You don't perform a positive reaction just to make him feel successful. If the touch feels unearned, you stay in your fortress mode. If it feels right, you offer the selective softness that melts his mental defenses. This back and forth is what creates the respect-dopamine loop. He feels the reward of your approval precisely because he had to navigate your boundaries to get it. The result, a bond built on integrity. A man melts for a woman who masters consent calibration because she represents a lifetime discovery that respects herself. He realizes that her yes has actual value because her no is a real possibility. This creates a sense of structural integrity in the relationship. An image, a man and woman standing close in a dimly lit hallway, their hands almost touching but not quite. The tension is visible in the small gap between them, symbolizing the peak of calibration before a connection is made. By understanding the consent calibration factor, you move from being a consumer of the interaction to the co-architect of the physical bond. You aren't just letting things happen to you, you are actively participating in a high-stakes negotiation of respect, safety, and desire. You teach him that your body is a temple with a very specific set of keys, and watching him learn to use those keys is where the true magic of the chase begins. The possessive protector impulse, the psychology of claiming the prize. In the primitive coding of the masculine brain, attraction and protection are inextricably linked. When a man is deeply invested in a woman, he moves beyond the role of a casual consumer of her time and enters the realm of the possessive protector. This isn't about ownership in a toxic sense. Rather, it is a high-status biological signal that he has recognized you as a lifetime discovery and is now signaling to the world and to his own subconscious that he is ready to defend your sovereign presence. The public claim and social signaling. The possessive protector impulse most often manifests in social settings through what we call anchoring touches. When a man places a firm hand on the small of your back in a crowded room, or pulls you slightly closer when a stranger approaches, he is engaging in a non-verbal broadcast. He is closing the qualifying gap and creating a unified front. For the man, this touch triggers a protector dopamine surge. By physically claiming his space next to you, he is asserting his legacy of competence. He is showing the room that he has successfully qualified to be the guardian of your safe harbor. If you respond as a non-reactive anchor, accepting the gesture with grace and poise, you validate his role as a provider and protector, which mentally melts his defenses and deepens his devotion. Image a cinematic shot from behind a couple at a high-end gallery. The man has one hand firmly but gently on the woman's waist as they look at a painting. His posture is expansive and protective, while she stands tall and elegant. Clearly the prize he is honored to stand beside. A shielding protocol. This impulse goes beyond simple touch. It's about spatial sovereignty. A man caught in this impulse will instinctively position his body as a shield between you and any perceived chaos or discomfort. He will take the street side of the sidewalk. He will stand between you and a rowdy crowd at a bar. When you allow this to happen without losing your own opinion sovereignty, you create a powerful respect-dopamine loop. You are telling him, I am a powerful woman, but I value the strength you bring to my life. This balance of selective softness and your own internal fortress is what makes a man stay in the hunt long term. He isn't protecting a victim, he is protecting a queen, and that makes him feel like a king. The result, the transformation of commitment. A man melts for the woman who triggers his protector impulse because it gives his masculinity a mission. It moves the relationship from a sentiment, just feelings, to a standard duty of care. He begins to see your well-being as an extension of his own. Image at a close-up of a man's hand taking a woman's hand to lead her through a dark, rainy street. The grip is secure and intentional, symbolizing his commitment to guiding the moving train of their shared journey safely. By understanding the possessive protector impulse, you move from being an option to being an imperative. You aren't needing his protection, you are sovereign enough to allow him the privilege of providing it. When a man feels that his protection is both wanted and respected, he will chase you to the ends of the earth to ensure he never loses the right to be your shield. The respect-dopamine delay, the art of high-stakes anticipation in a world of instant gratification and on-click connections. The most powerful psychological tool in a woman's arsenal is the respect-dopamine delay. Most people mistake attraction for a race to the finish line, believing that the faster they achieve intimacy, the more secure the bond. However, high-status attraction operates on the opposite principle. It utilizes the vacuum of uncertainty to create a tension so profound that the eventual connection feels like a hard-won victory rather than a cheap transaction. The science of the lingering inch. Dopamine is not the chemical of reward, it is the chemical of anticipation. The brain's pleasure centers fire most intensely when we are about to get what we want, not when we actually have it. The respect-dopamine delay occurs in those agonizing electric seconds when a man's hand is just an inch away from yours, or when he leans in for a kiss and you offer a selective softness that allows the moment to linger without immediately resolving it. By creating this delay, you are signaling your sovereign presence. You are showing him that you are not a consumer of his physical attention, you are the architect of the atmosphere. When you don't rush to fill the silence or close the physical gap, you force him to stay in a state of high, alert investment. You are qualifying his patience and his ability to handle the tension of your safe harbor. Image a high contrast, cinematic close-up of two hands on a wooden table, inches apart but not touching. The lighting is low and warm, highlighting the invisible tension in the space between them. It is the visual representation of the lingering inch. And from sentiment to standard, most women fear that a delay will make a man lose interest. In reality, for a high-value man, the delay is what builds respect. A solved mystery offers no dopamine because there is no challenge left, but a woman who masters the delay proves that she has a legacy of self-control. She isn't acting out of performance pressure or the need to please. She is acting out of opinion sovereignty. When you finally allow the touch to happen after a calculated delay, the dopamine release in his brain is exponentially higher. This creates a respect-dopamine loop. He begins to associate your presence with a higher level of satisfaction because he had to earn the proximity. You move from being a temporary sentiment in his life to being a permanent standard of what a high-status woman looks like. The sovereign finality a man melts mentally when he encounters the delay because it confirms he has found a woman who is a lifetime discovery. He realizes that you are not easy to win, which means you won't be easy to lose. Image a man looking at a woman with intense, quiet focus in a crowded room. She is looking back, calm and unhurried, maintaining her non-reactive anchor while the world moves fast around them. The delay is written in their eye contact. By implementing the respect-dopamine delay, you ensure that you are never taken for granted. You are teaching him that the architecture of your intimacy is built on a foundation of mutual respect and earned access. You aren't just a choice he made on a Tuesday, you are the moving train he spent his entire journey trying to catch. The vulnerability bridge, the high-status path to emotional submission. In the architecture of attraction, most people try to jump straight from stranger to intimate without building the necessary scaffolding. This leads to a connection that is fragile and easily broken. The vulnerability bridge is the strategic, physical, and emotional progression that moves a man from seeing you as a peer of character to viewing you as his absolute safe harbor. It is the art of using touch to move from low stakes zones to high stakes emotional territory, creating a path for him to drop his mask of competence and fully invest in your sovereign presence. The progression of the stakes. Every part of the human body carries a different level of psychological weight. A touch on the forearm is low stakes. It is a social, friendly gesture that tests your non-reactive anchor. But as a man moves his hand to the back of your neck, your cheek, or the small of your back, he is crossing a vulnerability bridge. High-status attraction requires that this bridge be crossed with consent calibration. You aren't just letting him access you. You are observing how he handles the increasing intimacy. If he rushes across the bridge without checking your comfort levels, he is a consumer who lacks the legacy of competence required for a woman of your standard. However, when he moves slowly, gauging your selective softness at every step, he is demonstrating that he respects the architecture of your boundaries. Image a cinematic, close-up shot of a man's hand gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind a woman's ear. The focus is on the extreme proximity and the tenderness of the gesture. The woman is looking at him with a steady, warm and inviting gaze, signaling that he has successfully crossed into a deeper vulnerability zone. The selective softness response. The bridge is not built by him alone. Your response is what reinforces the structure. When he reaches for a high-stakes area, such as your face or your hand, your ability to stay in sovereign presence, not giggling nervously, not shrinking away, but meeting his touch with a calm, receptive energy is what makes him melt. This is where you move from fortress to sanctuary. By allowing him to cross the vulnerability bridge, you are giving him a micro dose of the peace he will find in a long-term commitment with you. You are showing him that while your opinion sovereignty is unshakable, your heart is accessible to a man who has qualified for the journey. This creates a powerful respect-dopamine loop. He feels the reward of the intimacy because he understands the standard required to reach it. The result, the end of the mask, a man melts when he finally crosses the vulnerability bridge, because it is the only place he can truly experience the release of the mask. He realizes that he doesn't have to perform for you anymore. An image, a couple sitting closely on a dark velvet sofa in a quiet room. The man has his head rested against her shoulder, his eyes closed in a moment of total peace. The woman is holding his hand, looking out with a calm, protective expression, the visual embodiment of a bridge successfully crossed. By mastering the vulnerability bridge, you ensure that your physical connection is always an extension of your emotional depth. You aren't just dating, you are building a lifetime discovery that requires him to keep showing up, keep qualifying, and keep investing in the moving train of your life. The sovereign response, reclaiming the power of your reaction in the physics of attraction. Most interactions follow a predictable pattern of action and reaction. A man makes a move, and a woman reacts, often from a place of performance pressure or social conditioning. The sovereign response is the high-status disruption of this pattern. It is the ability to receive a man's attention, his touch, or his challenges without losing your internal anchor. It is the ultimate demonstration of opinion sovereignty, proving that while you are present in the moment, your emotional state is not dictated by his actions. The trap of the reflexive reaction. Most women have been taught to be polite to a fault. When a man touches her arm or offers a compliment, she might giggle nervously, look away, or over-explain her reaction. These are low-status responses because they signal that his presence has displaced her. It tells him that he has the power to tilt her world. To a high-value man, this feels like a solved mystery. If he can predict exactly how you will react to his stimulus, the hunt loses its tension. The sovereign response is different. It is built on emotional mobility. When he leans in, you don't recoil, but you also don't rush to meet him. You stay in your safe harbor. Your response is measured, calm, and entirely yours. It's the difference between a mirror that simply reflects what it sees and a diamond that refracts light through its own internal structure. Mastering the stillness factor. The core of the sovereign response is stillness. When a man initiates physical contact, perhaps the consent calibration of a hand on your waist, the high status move is to maintain your current momentum. If you were speaking, keep speaking. If you were looking at him, keep looking. By not resetting your entire body to acknowledge his touch, you are communicating that your moving train doesn't stop just because he stepped onto the platform. This creates a massive respect-dopamine loop. He expects you to be flustered. Instead, he finds a woman who is so comfortable in her own fortress that his touch is accepted as a natural extension of the moment, not a life-altering event. This non-reactive anchor is what makes a man melt mentally. He realizes that to truly move you, he has to bring more than just a gesture. He has to bring his entire legacy of competence. The result, becoming the standard. A man pursues a woman who masters the sovereign response because she represents a lifetime discovery. He can never quite figure out the limit of your composure. This keeps the relationship in a state of perpetual growth. You aren't playing hard to get. You are simply hard to move. By practicing the sovereign response, you move from being a consumer of the relationship's energy to being its architect. You set the standard for how you are to be treated by showing him that you are the primary owner of your own space. When a man realizes that your warmth is a sovereign choice and not a nervous reflex, his devotion shifts from temporary sentiment to a lifelong commitment to the woman who can hold her ground while the rest of the world is shaking. The secret isn't just knowing where he touches you, it's knowing that you are the safe harbor who decides if he's earned the right to be there. When you respond with a sovereign response, instead of performance pressure, you move from being an option to becoming his absolute standard. Don't just watch his hands, watch how you hold your own value while he tries to win yours. Stay in your power, keep your standards high, and I'll see you in the next video.